Hello everybody, I'm Sal here from Wired Games. Um, Today is our second stream. The last one we had some glitches, so we decided to give this another go. We have more bug fixes and improvements. So let's get going. Was just in the middle of adding this skill name to the list of basically when you pick up certain skills, the ingredient board should repopulate. Give you an idea about what I'm talking about. Let's run the game. Start new. So this is the board ingredients, and when the user picks a new skill, the board now has more variety. This is true when the user picks up new skills, so even more variety. So this skill now has been added to the list of improvements for the user to see more, basically a wider availability of ingredients. Okay. Let's go back to player script. Let the player start with 100 coins. We did it 10,000 to test the skill pickup. Start a new game, confirm. Let's run our business and let's complete a few orders. So we need 3 berries here. This one is. We can do the orders from top to bottom or in any order we want. Find this one. It's gone. Let's fail one. So after the turn is finished, we should see 2 successful orders and 1 failed order. Okay. And that's for month 1. Use fail, which is now reflected in the diary. 2 sales per 64 coins. And let's run another month. This time let's randomly click containers, so fail 3 orders. Let's quickly finish the month to trigger the end of. Two seconds left. Okay, so our business has failed. We have successfully completed 2 regular orders, 64 coins. We were open for 2 months, so wages and rent initially is 40 coins per month, so that's adding up. So in total we failed 4 orders. Seems to. Okay, I think there's some error here. We have to check the skills here. So let's run the game another time. This 64 is correctly. Again, let's give the player arbitrary 100 coins. From business, and this number is not going to update by itself because I changed it behind the scenes. But if I deduct some costs here, I'm going to up 300 down to 270. Let's pick up a skill. So we are expecting to see this value as a cost when the business fails. Speed up the turn again. So 250 is reflected. 1 month open, 1 wasted order. This number is correct. No income. So the number of skill is reflected correctly here, and that's good. Let's notice something. Let's run this scenario again, because it's as if the audio, you can't hear it, but I'm listening to it. The audio should pause and switch to the, basically losing the game should play different music and mute the normal background music. It's as if that only happened once. I want to make sure that's actually just by luck clicking something randomly filled an order. So let's okay, so I heard the music change. It's quiet now and we are listening to daily music. Okay, the music is playing where it was, basically at this volume level. Let's try failing again. Business. Before we do this, month. Okay. Ah. Okay, so the failure screen was in the middle of playing its own music, and I quickly pressed new game. Took me here. So this piece of music is actually playing. That's good, but the music, the sound that was playing on the previous screen was not interrupted. There was an overlap. Blue screen. As soon as it's okay, so this is where we actually unpause the background music when the user is taking. But if this loose screen is still playing its own music, which triggered. So when the player doesn't have enough money we trigger the lose screen. And okay, this has to be moved. It doesn't make sense to put this here, because it makes much more sense to put the sound effect trigger when the loose screen is ready. We are already pausing the background music, so I was hastily putting the sound trigger here in the diary entry. It should only be responsible for. So this is where we trigger the lose game sound effect. As this is playing, if the user presses the new game button, this is still playing. Let me do something. Excuse me. Suppose if it's playing, it stop. I'm gonna change how the game starts the runtime, because by default it actually runs in my other monitor. Every time I run the game, I'm gonna have to drag the screen here, so let's not do. Let's also investigate. So it's just toggle. This actually doesn't know which one of these sound effects is playing. It's only responsible for pausing and unpausing the, which is fine. Perhaps we could put a selector here. So when an effect is played, we could maybe store which effect is played. So maybe I'm trying to be efficient here, but sometimes it's counterproductive, because my idea is that if we automatically stop the effect, the lose game condition, that effect, as soon as the user clicks the new game button, which will actually trigger the unpaused background music. If we do the stop effect part here, this might be triggered by another mechanism in the game, which will then cancel the effects played for that case. We have some buttons that actually make some sound like this. So each time it's pause and unpause, it's going to, mind you, these are only working when they're interacted, they are never playing. Let's actually try that. So we are going to variable here. Just going to be an empty variable. Actually, maybe we are approaching the wrong way. Let's go into some So background music is audio stream player. The effects though are usually stream player 2D. But yeah, so the effects are usually very quick sound, so it made sense to put them under the component type 2D, stream player 2D, whereas uh, regular music pieces such as wind and background music is actually normal streams. Maybe we should make them lose as a normal stream as well. Change the type here. Which then brings up another question. We treat this piece as if it's actually always playing, but only pause when the last screens are displayed, whether it's lose or win. That was the idea. We haven't gone as far as doing the win screen yet, but in the lose screen, we want to pause the background music so people could hear the last screen music. But the way we trigger that is by effect. We treated that music as if it was just a one-off effect. You could still do that. Internally, it's a different data type, but it's a one-off thing. You could consider it as an effect. It's a shorter piece than the user hovering a button, and it's longer than a quick click sound, but it's a one-off thing. Which then is okay. So stick with this. Maybe this is what we need. We haven't changed this. We edit this variable. Not needed to. The lose is still lose. Okay, this seems to lose. If the lose is playing, just stop. Okay, let's try this. Never hurts to rerun. Suppose we could just set the wealth to 300 today. We don't really need, because we could always fail the game by running the business, clicking 3 times. Rent will come out, it's 40, and the user will fail the game. It's just set the term. So here's the okay, so it worked. So I was in the middle of hearing the lose effect, and I quickly clicked the new button, new game button. The background music is still playing, and the other lose game music was interrupted. So this is working. We will have to implement something like this for the new game pressed button in the win condition. We'll do that right away. Win case here, some room here. This line is similarly in win. There is its own diary, local win screen. Don't need to. Okay. This now has to move out of this level. So here's some major difference. In the loose screen, just the big picture, we have a diary section, which is just a label with its own script. Right away it's calling a method that's updating its text. So initially sound trigger was here, so we move that into the loose script. As soon as that screen is revealed, it's playing its own sound effect. So we are now doing something very similar for the Win screen. This one doesn't have same kind of, well, it's more or less the same. The diary entry doesn't have to play Win effect, so we moved it to the upper. So that's correct. So now we have to carry over the logic. But we gotta update the sound effect because we're interested in the Win effect. If it's playing, stop it, because now the user wants to play a new game. Remove the pause state, change the scene to new. Here, okay, this is something that was implemented recently. Which doesn't exist for the Win case, but it should. We take this, some room here. We should also pause the stream here. Okay. We want to, as soon as the Win screen is revealed, we want to start playing the Win effect. Therefore, we want to pause the background music. This is just updating the family banner on the screen. This area. That's the only difference between this script and the loose script. So when the user wants to play new game, if the Win effect is playing, we are stopped. So I think this was necessary because there was some conflict between another screen's real estate overlapping with the Win, so we were interrupting the internal process. This may no longer be necessary, or this has to exist in loose screen, but this script and this script are pretty much identical. Unpause the background music, change the scene back to new. This is still something we should discuss. Let's rerun the game. So you know how to fail the game. Let's see when we win the game. We have to give the player a lot of money. Something. The goal of the game is to get this certificate so you could serve your king. And to get here, you need 7,500 coins plus 4 other skills, which are adjacent skills here. But to get this, you gotta finish recipe collector and landlord. So we just picked recipe collector and this landlord. To get this, we need 500 coins and studios. So it's pretty much working from outwards to inward. We got this. Gold packs here. Now as soon as I pick up this skill, the background music should pause. See the win screen with some skill posts reflected on the screen. So I'm hearing the congratulations music, the win music, that's all good. We have the skill post here. We picked up all the skills, it's the total number. We didn't really run our business because we cheated. We just injected some money. So we have basically null coins. The player will never see this screen through mechanism like this. Before this music ends, I just want to click new game to see if the audio interruption is working properly, and it is working properly. So that's working sound management wise. So not sure when this came up, why it was important back then, but removing it didn't change anything, so let's just get rid of it. So what else can we do? Maybe. Okay, so here's an interesting case. We just loaded the new game scene from win screen. I should be able to click these banners and crests. I am actually. Funny thing is, my normal arrow cursor is changing into clickable area. But when I do click, it's not reflected. This happens when the game is in pause mode. I think that's why this was added. So this is the part that I couldn't figure out why the game thinks when this screen is loaded that somehow it's in this pause state that we have to basically remove the game's paused state back to running. Because if the game is not running, then these click actions won't go through. If it did, then we would have to see some changes, and these changes would eventually enable the start button. I believe this is only working because data still has some residual value. Nope, it's not. So it's even more bizarre that this button is. So what would happen if I actually click this blur or flower crest and the blue banner if I hit start? So because data didn't have any meaningful banner and crest value, of course this banner area is going to be blank. The game starts because the button was enabled, although that's a false statement because it should never have been enabled. And I believe this is actually happening again because of this line. The funny thing is this: if this is needed in the win screen, why did we not need anything like this to lose screen? Let's run the game again under this condition. Means we with 10,000 coins. Actually 10,000 is not, because 16,500 is the skills. So okay, red and then castle. So when we win the game, we come back here, we want to see these buttons enabled, and in that case we are going to pick these two to see how it. Okay, let's start picking skills. Win the game. Ta-da! Okay, it's all playing nice. Okay, the fact that this looks disabled is a good point. So I still see the interactable areas. So picking one won't enable the start button until at least, I mean, exactly one crest is selected. So okay. Point is, this should be here. Now I want to confirm that this is actually working properly without that line. I bet we will have to put that line here. But I never truly tested the case where the user clicked the new game button, ended up on this screen, but they actually, I mean, I never actually picked anything to restart the game. They just always end up here, and I did not move forward. So we can now start a game, and user has 10,000. Let's just fail the user. We have only 20 coins. Let's run the business. Down. You don't really need to wait for it. Kind of cute. Speed up the month. Here. Okay. Fail. New game. Okay. Great. Interesting. So without that line, it's actually working as intended. I mean, I can't complain. If it's working, it's working. But it's just curiosity. So I think a bigger question is, since, I mean, only looking at the loose screen here for the code, since there was nothing that actually paused the game, it makes sense that there is no line that actually unpauses the game. This line of code makes much more sense than. So the real question is, before we trigger the win screen, are we actually pausing the game? And I still don't know how to read the game's post state looking at Godot's interface. This pause button here is only pausing the runtime, but we can't really see the inner process whether it's paused or not. And if I actually output this value while the game is running, meaning if the user clicked button, I could actually output this value here. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about right now is, imagine we were seeing the screen from the win case. We just got back here from the win state. And imagine we don't have this line. How can I see the value of this before I actually set it to, which means I need this line because this must be true, so that now that I set it to false, only after that, when I actually take the user to, they can actually interact. So there is the pause mode for win screen. This is when we are revealing some overlay elements, such as, let's actually recap. I can present something here. When the counter is going down, and if the player clicks the skill interface, brings it up, we wouldn't want the counter counting down. We would want it to be paused. So in cases like this or this, we are essentially setting the game's paused value to true. So that the player wouldn't be penalized. So when the user wins, I keep saying user, that's kind of a habit to do web development, so everybody was a user. Now I have to change my lingo. So players, when they see the win screen, why should the game be paused? And do I actually set it to true without knowing? Try to see cases where I'm actually setting it to true. So this is when the settings screen is either visible or not visible, so that's where we do it. Again, when the skills are shown for the recipes, which actually has now become instructions, so but in-game code is still recipes and settings. So okay, maybe in a rush I actually did not put space before and after the equal sign. Let's just, since this line is never going to change, let's just look for this. So we'll have more matches. So this is where we falsify, which is the problem line, because why should we do that? So when we close the screen, when we are looking at the skills, that's where we have to unpause the game, so it makes sense. And similarly, okay, so this is the settings script. So on the settings interface, there's a new game button. Because to see the settings screen, we had just paused the game, we have to unpause it, so this line makes sense. That's fine. Similarly, because we are closing the settings screen, we have to unpause the game. That makes sense too. We just also looked at instructions, similar story. When it closes, game over. This game over code, I think, is never used, because this is actually, this has now been labeled as loose, so we might still have a game over scene. Let's go to local. This is no longer valid, so let's actually kill it. We no longer want game over scripting. Down to, so we delete it. Redundant. Let's go back to search results. So we have game. So we looked at these cases. So interesting. When we trigger the win screen, this is our win case. When the user picks certify, that's when we change the scene to. So if I actually had paused the game, it would have made sense to unpause it when the user clicks something in the win screen. It's bizarre. I think I'll add this weird behavior to my notes. If you see any discrepancies, it's actually maybe important later, but not right now. So win, lose, pose discrepancy. Okay. Okay. You run the game. Clicking this should also bring the instructions. Counting up. We could just maybe play one round. Let's see. Try to fill from bottom. Why not? This guy is already there. This guy. Coin. So let's fill one order. So let's actually see the windscreen again. Maybe there's more to fix there. We were so baffled by pose discrepancy. Maybe there's something else there. One thing I noticed that there is actually this area shouldn't look clickable. Win. This area. Family banner. Should normally be arrow, which should just be the normal pointer. So this area looks clickable. Maybe there's something inside that actually this panel. That's also arrow. Icon is the this is probably yep. Save. And the crest itself was a duplicate of icon with different graphic, so it probably picked up the pointing out for duplication. Okay, one less thing. So we wasted one order. That's good. Yeah, there's really no point fixing this text error here, because the user will never come to this screen by injecting so much. But this is probably something we can fix. We should remove this plural case. It's actually easy. Here is actually did something similar for the loose screen where if the diary loose. So when the user picks up only one skill, it should say, well, I learned one new skill versus two new skills. So the skill should be either in plural or singular. We should do something similar to this. Here, instead of injecting raw values, we have to pluralize. This number of months should be just a month case. This should you shouldn't worry about points, whether it's singular or plural, because it's an interesting case. I mean, because we're talking about net income here. The net income is your total income, game wise, the total number of months and all the income you have generated minus your expenses. So there is a possibility that it could just be one coin. So this should also be coin or coins. So now we have to treat this case as so from top. Number of months is this. The value we were actually picking. I guess I could have moved the line and down. Coming up. Yeah. Skill count. Going to be one is month, the other one is coin. Coin or coins. This one is either month or months. These two will be here. The order here, it doesn't matter since it's a dictionary, it'll just pick its value, but let's keep them in order. So this is net income, so we are going to calculate the total income. Remember, we actually copied and pasted this from loose screen where we were only interested in the total income, but here we're interested in net income, which is actually calculated here in a similar. So this should actually be coming here, which was here. Yes, should be like that. Need for the number of months is the number of months. Stats. We are honoring this. We are honoring this. This and this. We are taking care of plural cases. Done. Okay. Of course, we gotta test it. On a new game. It's working because we still have that pose logic. Still debate. Let's win the game. What were we trying to prove here? That it's either 1 month. So let's actually run the game for at least 1 month. So it's running. And let's have some waste and then one order. Let's hit this one. It is good. We have 1 success, 1 fail. One order, 1 fail. So, oops, 1 month. Still, Oh, because when the data is coming from skill count, but not number of months. When it's only 1 month, this is singular, but of course skill count was more than one, so they changed the value of this to the pillowcase. This should work, but let's test it again. One business, one fail, two fails maybe. Pick that before I pick this line. Okay, okay, win. It's now 1 month confirmed, and net income is of course null, but we confirmed that was working before. Actually, we did. Well, maybe not in this session, but I did. We can actually show that case again. What is actually harder to test is whether it's going to be one coin or not. Because here's the case. The player has to spend 16,500 coins to pick up all the skills and win the game. So whatever income they are going to make, and we have to run the business at least 1 month or so many months, so that the total income is at least one higher than total expenses. So that's really hard to simulate, because in 1 month they can't make more than they are paying for all the skills. So we can actually, there's an easier way to fix it. To play the game, simulate it in a crazy fashion. What we can do here to pretend is like, well, this is also wrong too. Same kind of, because we actually took this whole thing from Blue's diary and the danger of copying and pasting. So here, this coin, whether it's plural or singular, all depends on net income. It's either one or more than one, which makes it coin or coins. So to test this, we can actually pretend that our net income is, let's just say, actually another thing that this line should be returned. We are really returning, but let's pretend we are actually returning some. I just realized something else. The reason why I wrote this decimate is that it takes numerical values and puts a comma between. It's basically 1,000 separator. So this is essentially spitting out string value. So a string value is actually fine here, but because it's string, you can never understand whether it's actually more than one or two. So maybe this should always return numerical value, and we should do the decimate operation here after the fact. And then here net income is still going to be a numerical value, which will define the plural case point. Now here we can actually return any value we want. So let's pretend that net income is 1, so we can actually test this case. Um, just these two separate. Yeah. The business. Let's do a successful order. It's good. Oh, luckily that second one was also good too. Actually, no, two failed because I'm not seeing any success cases, and audio effect was also waste. I also didn't see any coin flying over. Guess I just chose the wrong company. Need this guy, this guy. The order doesn't matter. This should actually pick up. Good. Now we have to win the game. Because we hard-coded number of coins, one for our net income, 1 month open, and one coin net income. This is just is the correct value, but it's overridden here. So now we can do the same test when it's actually more than one. Always test. One botched order. This one is this. I was just about to click, but I think I did not pick this one. Sometimes it's tricky. The apple is replaced with this, so that's good. Pick them up. So cool. Okay, we have now 2 coins net income. And the final, yeah, the music stops. The win music stops. The background music here kicks in, so that's all good. This is working, although we still don't know why that pause state is necessary for the unpaused case. Let's now move this back to its original intended version. I think this is looking good. We no longer need this script. Close. So what else? There's a bit of jumping effect here, like when the game starts, because the player picked the audio level low, it should actually start the music at this level. But the way I hear it, the music starts at the highest, like the loudest, and then quickly switches to this quieter state. So it's as if it starts here and jumps back here audio wise. You guys can't hear that. So just thinking if there's any quick solution you can actually implement in the next few minutes. I'm planning to stop soon. So let's just investigate a different part of our game. When the new game starts, let's go to new game. So the value we see on the screen is part of an audio component, which is here. Is this just a component by itself? So we are accessing the slider component, which is labeled as music, and we are doing that from the new game script. Then we are reading the music volume from settings, which has been preloaded. The settings is a singleton and it's available all the time. But this is essentially just a visual feedback. The fact that it actually plays the loudest and then quiets down has nothing to do with this. This is only displaying what the sound is. It's going to be the same kind of let's say audio discrepancy. If we comment this line out, we just won't see anything visual, but the same kind of jumping effect will be there. So there is another place where we manage the sound. It's here, the volume dB. So this is where the problem is, because it says if this volume dB is high and then goes to a quieter value because this is kicking in, and this is most likely fed into this function from another place that actually adjusts actually both are still related. Okay, so this is where things are. Okay, this is where the problem is. Right away, it always assumes that if you can't get the music volume from the settings, always assume that it's the highest level. But I think at some point it actually reads the correct value. So it actually, we know it's reading the correct value because every time we start the game, it's actually able to pick up the value from the settings file, which is here. So it's like 1/5 of the total volume, and that is reflected visually here, sort of 1/5 way of the total length. But it always starts at the highest level, but usually we know we actually want to display the slider here, and because we update the slider's value here, this now quiets down the music, but that doesn't change the fact that it always starts at the highs. So might be one of those chicken and egg cases that it either is like we always start it, we either don't start the music as soon as the value is set, we actually start the music. That way there is no sort of sound jumping from a higher value to a lower value. Or we streamline this whole data reading in a different way. Because here's the thing, if the user decides to mute the music, I bet because of this race condition here, if I start the game and if the music actually kicks in right after I click any key and we see the new game, I bet the music will start and then go quiet. Yep, it did that. So because Sound Manager is always playing the music, Sound Manager is here. Background music is although it says not autoplay here, there's another place that actually starts the music, and that is I think that is under press any key. Yes, sound manager, background music play. So this pretty much doesn't care how loud the music is. It just plays it at its loudest. And then the game actually loads this, well, technically to be the most correct here, the audio level is already in the memory, but that value, the way it's actually used, comes way after this music has started playing. So I think this might be a safer thing here. We know we are going to unpause the music at some point. We could just say play, but then I think it was stream post. True. And we actually wrote this case as pause background. So start playing it, pause it. Now we need different place to unpause it. So we actually can do that in here, and the music value is this, because when this music value is changed, this is triggered. This is actually saving that change in the music level. Either the user has changed it or the game actually loaded. It kind of auto saves itself as soon as it's loaded. And since we are actually changing the value here, we can unpause it. If the value is still 0, let's say like the user actually wants to mute, the game never actually pauses the music. That was the version we had a month ago, that we were actually manually stopping and playing the music, but we decided to keep the volume, the decibel so low the user can't hear. That was a suggestion by the Godot documentation, or some idea that I got from settings. Actually no, it's not a settings thing. This is a sound manager thing that we actually have to unpause it. So now the user wanted the music to be muted. It's 0. Now if we run this game, I should not hear any jumping. That should happen right after I click here. Yep, it did not play anything. There was a very tiny sort of static noise. It's as if something tried to kick in and then went quiet. I'll double check that it was actually just a hardware issue. Something just very briefly wanted to play and stopped. Yeah, there's that static noise. I guess I'll look into that, because there's some, I think, just trying to play and we are pausing it. Maybe I have to put the put this line somewhere else. But actually, maybe prioritize better. Audio is part of settings. Audio is also part of new game. In this case, our problem happens in new game screen. New game is also responsible for there's also something else here which is interesting. Between this line, looks very similar, this line, the fact that we are actually doing this here, we are not actually using the 0 this, but we are actually the audio works in decibel values, actually is below 0. However, when we present the values to the user, we kind of arbitrarily pick values between 0 and 1. So like every click of the slider or every tick of the slider, it's as if the user is incrementing some value 10%. So we are converting some linear values into decimal values. So there's some kind of conversion happening. This kind of conversion that is happening in the audio component is overridden here, but with this absolute 0 value. So let me just take the whole line. So this highlighted line is what's happening inside the audio component, and here in new game we are actually accessing the audio component. And so question is, why do we even need audio component? Is part of two other components. So audio is injected into the settings screen as well as new game. But if audio component is actually taking care of itself, why do we even, let's actually remove this, then do we really need this? If this is where we need it. But the other one, audio component, is taking care of its music level. Things are just changing rapidly, so sometimes there's just garbage code left behind. Still a bit of hiccup, like very tiny static noise there. I will investigate that, whether it's something, maybe it's just a setting in the sound file, or something else. Maybe it's just one of these things. But I think that's it for tonight. Thank you for watching, and have a good night and good weekend.